on the cloud. All right, we are officially here. It is the Coaches Kickstart Club call. My name's Jenn Barley, and I'm excited that we have a lot of people here, that we're seeing some faces, we're seeing some names, and we're seeing some solid color too. We want to be able to pull everybody over as panelists, and the reason being is we're going to be doing a very interactive engagement today, and it helps to have people just be able to speak freely and not have to raise their hand and then call on people, and it makes it much more conversational and works in a really great way. Now, if you're joining, yes, and some of you are joining from computers that don't have camera, and some of you are on phone, and you'll still be able to get a lot of value out of this. One of the things I want to do is I want to go ahead, this is how I'm going to do a poll. So this is our test. I'm going to launch a poll to the group and have you guys, I just want to know, how long have you been coaching? And I'm assuming, Karen, can you see that poll?
Yeah, but here's the interesting thing, Jen. It says hosts and panelists can't vote.
Oh,
so
well,
if you've made everybody a panelist, then they can't vote. Is everybody seeing that same thing?
Yeah. I love it. So one person I haven't pulled over yet. Her name is Charity. Charity, I see that you are here. Could you vote? She just did. She's been a coach between 1 and 2 years. So now I'm bringing you over, Charity. All right, cool. So here, that's good for all of us to know. A lot of us use the Zoom technology. I want to do a poll tonight in a class that we have, and I wanted to test it here to see how it went. And I'm going to go ahead and share the results of Charity. She's the one who answered that. So, all right, fantastic. Thank you guys for letting me do a little preview. So, all right, here's what we're going to do today. This is, and some of you have been involved with us before when Karen and I have done coaching intensives. And so I know Leanne has, and Kim has, Brenda has, and Sarah has, and Dawn totally has as well. So yeah, so a few people have. It's a super fun way. We have done this before in the Coaches Kickstart Club call, where we're going to really focus on the art and the skill of coaching. So I want you guys to be thinking, I'd love for someone to be a client, right? So, and the way it works is you would be a client, you would just share your situation with us. In fact, let me just go ahead and, can I mute everybody at once? That's a good question. I'm going to just do.
You muted yourself.
That's funny. So the thing that's funny is Karen probably wishes I would mute myself often. I am a talker. I talk a lot. And sometimes her ears get tired. Okay. So good. So you guys are all muted. So I want somebody to be a client, and you guys are going to bring a real life situation that you have to the table. And what we're going to do is we're going to take turns asking a question. So a bunch of us are going to ask a question of you. Karen and I are going to give some feedback, talk about the coaching, and then you as a client will pick a question to answer, and then we continue on. It's a great way to see different paths, different ways, how to fine-tune some things. And sometimes when Karen and I do this with this particular group, we sit back a little bit and just let the questions flow. Today, we're actually gonna get in there though and really have some great coaching discussion. So I love it. Dawn, you are correct. Karen did know what she was signing up for.
I might not have known the extent, but I did know what I was signing up for.
That's right. All right, so who would like to be a client? And it can be anything. Remember, we're probably not going to get to resolution, and that's okay, right? The key of this is if you're a client, you're helping the rest of us. Because the goal of this is to focus more, to be honest, on the coaching than the actual client. Anybody want to be a client?
And it doesn't have to be some earth-shattering, like, thing that's going on in your life. It could be just a decision that you're looking to make. It could be something that you're kind of on the fence. All right, great. We have a client. We got Sarah, Jen.
Oh, great. Sarah, good. Let me get you unmuted. Okay. And I want to make sure that we can hear her nice, loud, and clear. Okay, good. All right. Talk to me.
Hi, everyone. So it is quite a big decision that's going on, but it's quite a simple one. I don't know whether to move out of my flat or not, my apartment, because there's about to be an enormous building project happening right outside these windows. So obviously working during the day is going to be pretty much impossible. I work from home, but part of me is thinking, I'll just move out, you know, pay loads of money to get out of the contract, move out. And part of me is thinking, oh, the thought of moving, you know, and I don't know which is the bigger issue right now, the thought of moving or the, you know, the money and the, you know, so that's what's going on.
All right, perfect. Great situation. I mean, I'm sorry that you're having these challenges, and it's a big decision. And I also know, Sarah, I believe you just moved into this location, right? So how long have you been there?
6 months.
6 months. Okay. All right, you guys. So you heard the dilemma, right? So who wants to start? Anybody can go, just unmute yourself and ask Sarah a question. Sarah's just going to jot some of them down. She's not necessarily going to answer them. But where would you go with this scenario? Who wants to go? I'm writing down my question.
And so, Sarah, this is Leanne. You actually look like you live in a castle from where I'm sitting.
And in place, Leanne. It's kind of, yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so you can imagine the noise will carry. There's no
Right.
sound insulation. It's grade 2 listed. That's really old, by the way, for the Americans. It means it's really, can't do any building work to the building. It's protected. Yeah.
Okay. So you said part of you thinks move, get out of here because of the noise and the dust and just the construction going on around you. And part of you thinks, oh, moving and the money that it'll cost plus the upheaval. So which part of you thinks, oh, moving and the money?
Which part of me?
Yep. So don't answer it yet, Sarah. Which part of you is thinking about the move and the money? Is that right, Leanne?
Yes.
Okay. Very interesting. Okay, I'm going to come back to that. Who else has a question? Oh, we want lots of participation.
It's the interactive part. Let's go, guys. And the people that I know really well, I'm going to pick on soon. So you know who you are. Brenda. So let's unmute Brenda.
Oh, Sarah, you do look like you live in a castle. It looks really cool. So when you first found your apartment, what was it that you loved so much about it?
Great.
Just writing this down, yeah.
Yep, just writing it down. Who else? Okay, Kim.
Hi, Sarah. What makes the noise in the construction an issue for you right now?
Great. About one more before Karen and I go.
Come on, who wants, the person that's sitting here going, oh my gosh, please don't call on me, please don't call on me, please don't call on me. I want that person to go.
Unless Kay wanted to go, I just muted her because she was doing the camera.
I can go.
All right, Bob.
Hi.
Everyone's seeing your face. Everyone's seeing face in a long
And I
time.
didn't shower today, and I was like, today of all days, I don't want to do camera, but I don't care.
Okay.
Non-shower confidence. My question, and I typed it in the thing, what else would be impacted in a positive way if you did move out?
Great. All right. All right, Kara, what do you got, babe?
So Jen, I have a question that we might want to go to after your question because it involves a coin.
Oh, okay, good. So let me go to, how about this? We'll do my question, we'll do a little debrief, we'll do your question.
Perfect.
So I just want to know, Sarah, that what's making this really difficult for you? Okay. So a couple of things I just want to highlight that we went through there. What I loved is nobody said what would be helpful, because we do need to set an agreement for the session, but we still need to understand who Sarah is in her relationship with this particular dilemma. So what I mean by that is, I'm just making sure everybody's muted. So what I mean by that is we need to get a little bit more information. We need to find out where our head is. And at some point, usually after, I don't know, the second or third question, then we can come in and say what would be helpful right now. The interesting thing that I love that Leanne did is she said, what part of you, and here's the thing, I don't care about the rest of the question. What she highlighted is there's a part, because if anybody is undecided about anything, it's because they're divided. A part of them might want to do A, a part of them might want to do B. And I think, and if there's a tug of war going, or an I'm not sure what to do, it's because one part is aligning with one choice, one part's aligning with the other. So being able to show that there's two parts of her in conflict is a really great way of just understanding decision making. So I thought that that was really great, because sometimes we'll say it's between the money and the noise, and it's not, right? Those are the two conditions that are causing the point of tension. So looking at the part of it, I just wanted to highlight, I was like, oh, that's interesting, because it totally falls in line with decision making, right? And then we had some other great questions about to find out a little bit more about the noise in the construction, what makes that an issue. The question, what did you love about the place, right? Because right now there's conflict and it's unhappy, but connecting back to a love. When Bob said what else would be impacted in a positive way if you moved out, it's keeping it also to realize this isn't all negative. So right now it feels like a drain, right? It's a bummer and I don't want to deal with this, and I'm going to lose money, or I'm going to lose peace and quiet. But sometimes it's helping to flip also the client to what could be some of the positive. Technically, by picking, if you did move out, it's choosing a direction. So it could even be shorter and broader to say, so I love this, not I love this, but you would say something like, so what is something positive that could come out of this, right? So it's short and broad. It's not picking a direction, but keeping it there.
I think too, Jen, a big thing is even if you're going to go that positive route, to, make a list, make a list in your head about all the positive things that can happen right here. So not just even thinking of one, just thinking, go do a big brain dump. What's the positive parts that could come out?
All right. Any questions about any information I just shared? Looking at everybody. All right. Okay, Kara's going to show you guys a different technique, and we'll see how it goes. Do you want her to answer?
I do.
Okay, so Sarah, we're going to have you actually answer Karen's question, but then we'll come back to these other questions, okay?
And then I'm going to tell you why, my thought process and why I did what I did. Okay. So I have in my hand, ladies and gentlemen, I have an American quarter. Okay, here is heads, and here is tails, okay? So now, Sarah, what I want you to think about as I have this coin in my hand, all right? We're gonna say that heads is you stay and tails is you go. Make sense?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna flip the coin. All right? Ready? Whoa. Flipped. What do you want it to be? Heads or tails?
The one that was go.
The one that what?
The one that was to leave.
The one that was to leave. Okay. Excellent. And that's exactly what it was, right? That's exactly what that was. So what did that just reinforce for you?
That deep down I know what I really want to do. But I'm overthinking everything. I'm justifying everything. Yeah, and when, like you say, when you're in it, you can't see the wood for the trees. But yeah, when it comes down to it, you know.
Exactly. You know. So this is a great tool to use, ladies and gentlemen, when your client has an either or. Now, we could have went down a couple different versions when Sarah started talking about this whole thing. Does it have to be an either or? Can it be a combination? Does it have to be either move or move, whatever? But with this, when your client has something and they've narrowed it down to stay or go, this is a great tool. And what I did was I made sure that I told her, right, okay, heads is your staying and tails is your going. Now, here's the interesting part. Now, I flipped this coin, right? And then when my hand's like this, right, when my hand is over this coin, I asked her, what did you want it to be? Because your client knows what they want it to be. Now, here's the key. You don't mess with them, right? She said, I want it to be go. And this one, actually, it was tails and it was go. So whatever the client says that they want it to be, that's what you use. You go, yup, spot on, bam, tails. What'd you learn? And that's exactly what happened, right? Tails, she learned, but even if it was heads, I would have still said tails. She learned, and what did she say, right? She knew that she had the answer. She knew that it was inside of her. She knew that that's what she really wanted to do. Because what happens here is when that coin is in the air, your client's going one way. Even if it's a little bit, if you know you're going to take that 41.59 thing, there's 51% where she might just be a little bit over. She might be like, yep, 51%, that's what I want to do. So what you're doing is you're reinforcing to your client that they're on the right track and that they should trust their own instincts on them. What do you want to throw in there, Jennifer? Because I'm sure you have things to say.
Oh, always. So I love that. That was great in action. I don't know if Karen said it, but usually what she says is sort of an answer quick, right? Because the thing is, we don't want the client to go into a whole bunch of story. We want them to actually, what did you want it to be? Answer quick kind of thing. So the other thing is, well, it's interesting because I feel like now the whole coaching session has shifted, right? So let's just pause for a moment. What questions do you guys have about the flipping the coin process? Thoughts? Okay, Scott, go ahead.
Hey, so yeah, I'm dealing with a client who is one of those classic super resistant clients who never seems to know the answer and is super stuck. So I'm just curious for you, when you've used that and you've had a situation along those lines, what have you done to sort of move them along?
After the flip?
After the flip, yeah. So you're flipping, they're like, no, really, I don't know. And you're like, all right.
But, and that's where we would have that conversation about the 41.59.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that you have to be 100% bought in to what it is that you just said, but if you're gonna, in the air, in a weird kind of funky way, You want it to be one way or the other. And actually, Jen, why don't you explain how this used to work for you?
You mean with you?
With me, yeah.
So for example, I would sit there and I don't even know what it is. Let's say I wanted to buy a lamp and I had 2 lamps, right? And I'm like, I don't know which lamp I want. And I'd ask Karen, and the moment I asked her, I'm like, pick that one. Like in my mind, the moment I gave it the power to Karen to choose, I wanted to control the situation again, going, no, I know what lamp I want. I really want this one. And I started to root for her to say something, right? So, and this could be about a business decision. It could be about a marketing campaign. It could be about a lamp. It doesn't matter. And I realized, interesting, I know what I want, but for some reason, I'm staying stuck in the indecision of it. So I think that's one thing is I think people do know what they want. Now, Scott, let's say they say, I don't know, it was really split, right? Oh, I just had the perfect answer for that. What was it? It was brilliant. Not really, but I think it is if you, I know. So let's say that you removed all negative consequences. Nothing could possibly go wrong. You wouldn't lose money. You wouldn't lose sleep. You wouldn't whatever. What is it that you would do? So sometimes you have to strip away the obstacle. So for Sarah, the obstacle is losing the money from first blush, right? From what we've heard. The other obstacle is dealing with noise. Now, the noise will be there and the money will be there. They're both can be managed, but it's really about what does she really want. So sometimes remove the obstacle that's making the decision hard. That's another way to be able to do that. The other thing is asking them, okay, so you don't know what the decision, how do you know the decision, regardless of what it is going to be right? So sometimes take them out of the decision and then to the reconciliation of it, right? Does that help? Okay.
And you know what else, Scott, too? I might, depending on the client and depending on my relationship with the client, I might call bullshit. I might really just say, hey, you know what? I got to tell you, man, I don't believe you. When that coin was in the air, there was some part of you that was leaning towards, stay or go. And I gotta tell you, I'm not, I wanna know. And then I wanna know why you won't tell me, because I know you were there, and then kind of poke the bear a little bit there.
Yeah, I love that. I call it declaring shenanigans. I'm like, I declare shenanigans on that. You know, yeah, and that actually does move people along. It's true. Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Thank you.
Sure thing.
So let's see, what other questions do you guys have or comments about the coin? Diana?
Well, maybe this is for the next phase of this. So I'm thinking I love this because it, makes it kind of forces your client into their intuition place, right? Mm-hmm. So I am getting to the place where I have a certain kind of client that I love working with, and it's the classic, how did I wind up here? Is this my beautiful house? Is this my beautiful wife? The guy in Silicon Valley with a mid-level management job, 6 figures, golden handcuffs, but realizes, oh my God, I'm so done with this game, but I can't get out. So I'm thinking of a particular client I have who I've been coaching for, 6 months now. Amazingly great guy, and his dilemma is really what he's even articulated it pretty much like, just cash it all in, get on my bike and, ride my bike through South America for 6 months and tell my wife and kids, I'll see you in a few months. And so that's where his heart really wants him to go, but everything else, all his responsibilities, his mortgage, blah, 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 is keeping him this way. But he needs this to really find his next thing, right? So mm-hmm. The coin toss thing it wouldn't work because we've been around the tree so much. Or maybe if I did the coin toss thing and he said, get on the bike and go to South America. So now where do I take him? Because it's a huge thing, and not to diminish the apartment thing at all. I mean, that's a pretty significant life thing too, but this is like bigger than an apartment change. Where do you take your client when they say, oh, I really want to get on a bike for 6 months and leave my family?
Okay. Go ahead, Kara.
So and I love that you brought this up, because I feel like this is almost like an apples and oranges, because with Sarah, it was, do I stay or do I go? Right? And she's like, boom, the coin flipped, I'm going to go. With this guy, Diana, he knows he wants to go already. So it's not the decision of, is he going to go? It's the decision of, how the hell do I make going work? So he already, he's in his head, he knows what he wants, right? You just said he wants to be connected with his purpose, knows all these other things. But that piece of it then is, how do we eliminate the fears that have him staying? So then what I would do, I would address the fears and then ask him, what's his life gonna be like in whatever, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, 5 years, if he doesn't do this? Or I would back it up from the, how long are you willing to stay in exactly what you're in if nothing changes? And then, I would go, are you willing, if nothing at all changes, nothing at work changes, nothing with your family changes, are you willing to stay in it for 5 years? Well, maybe. Then go back up 4 years. I could probably do, maybe. And then back it up. But then what happens there is that, or actually it's the other way around. If 5 years, no, I can't see myself doing this in 5 years. Great. 4 years, no, I can't see myself. If he says maybe at 5, you might have to go up, right, to 10 years. Like, holy smokes, how long is he willing then to put his life on hold before he actually is in alignment with his dream? Because right now he's stuck in his head with all the numbers, the mortgage, the payments, all that kind of stuff. And we don't want to minimize that, but here's a smart guy, right? And how do we connect him to something successful that's worked in the past to help him move forward? Go ahead, Barley.
So one other thing I would ask him then is, you know what you want to do, right? So what are the 3 biggest what ifs that are holding you back? So it's, what if my wife leaves me, right? I'm making this up. What if I can't afford my lifestyle? And what if it's the wrong choice? Right? So then it's about coaching around those, right? So the other interesting thing is, he's not necessarily looking to ride his bike through South America. He's looking for what riding his bike across South America will give him, right? So by asking him that and saying, so if you were to ride your bike without your family, what is the feeling that's going to give you? Or what is that going to give you? So what are other ways to get that don't feel so dramatic, right? Or that could still keep your marriage intact, still have this, still have that, right? So it's about balancing that out. And that's really, it's not about the decision. It's about the inability to pull the trigger on it, or to commit to where he is. Because the reality is, the what ifs could be so big, he's not willing to risk it. Great. Then how do you reconcile the fact that you're going to stay with what you're doing? So anytime people have decision making, you guys, going back to whether it's Sarah's case or Diana's client's case, it's how do they reconcile it? So part of what would be interesting for Sarah, since we did ask some great questions, but we actually now know more information. She doesn't even need to answer those other questions. She knows, she said, deep down, I know what it is that I need to do. So part of it then is, how do you reconcile the fact that this is what you should do, right? And it might be around the money loss. It might be around the energy. It might be around a whole bunch of different things. But once somebody makes a decision or is going to be committed to that decision, how do they become at peace with that decision that they've made? Other thoughts or questions coming up?
And
I love this.
And it's interesting too, and I don't want to get away from Sarah here, but going back to Diana for a second. Sometimes I find that it annoys the hell out of people when I tell them that their lack of making a decision is actually making a decision to stay exactly the way things are. And sometimes that actually annoys people enough to make a decision to do something different. It's just like, you know that you're making a decision to stay the same, right? Like you're just going with the status quo here. And it's just like, well, no, I'm not. Yeah, well, you really are. You're not doing jack. And then it's like, ooh, okay, well, maybe I do need to do something. So it's a little bit of intentional soft button pushing, I would probably say that would be.
Soft button pushing.
Yeah, not my hardcore smackdown.
Your gentle approach.
Correct.
The softer side of Sullivan.
There you go.
Coming through.
I'm really curious about Diana's client. This is a fascinating client for me. But I'm really curious if you were to find out from him what he thinks needs to change in him in order for this decision to be more clear.
In his mind, all he needs is more money in the bank. If that were the case, he'd say he'd do it. But, you know, he's got his wife just made partner at her firm, so she works 80 hours a week. They've got 2 young children, of which he is the main caregiver right now. He got laid off from his job, so his severance package is going to be ending shortly. He's looking for a new job. He's got all this stuff going on about ageism in Silicon Valley, which is true to a certain degree, but doesn't help to focus on that, obviously. You know, so for him, it's like, you know, what am I going to do with the second half of my career? And, oh yeah, by the way, you know, this game isn't working for me anymore. He realizes that Silicon Valley and the whole luster of all of the allure of Silicon Valley is really just kind of this fake money sport thing, and he's over it. He wants something more authentic for himself, but he also feels like he has to provide for his children's college education, which is going to be, you know, his kids are like 9 and 11, something like that.
So the tug is becoming between responsibility and freedom.
Yep.
That's the tug. That's the 2 values that are completely in conflict with one another, right? So one's a lifestyle of freedom, even though he signed up for some different responsibilities. And then he also has that responsibility. That's creating the various of going back and forth. I deserve to feel free, but I have a responsibility. And I signed up for these responsibilities, but I want to feel free. And that's what's creating it. The interesting thing is it's so all or nothing. I'm either all in or I am by myself on a bike in South Africa. There's a whole bunch of gray action going on in there too, right? So kind of interesting.
Yeah, and those are on the table too. I'm just trying not to complicate my questions
I know.
for you guys.
Yeah. So anyway, but the key thing is that, you know, it is about, you know, what freedom is he losing by probably overthinking everything? So there's a big cost to overthinking, right? So what is that giving away?
Right. Yeah. I get a lot of these level 5 types, right? So they're all in their head, super smart, intellectualizing everything.
Right. So they're big on analysis. They see opportunity, what makes the best choice, that kind of thing. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So let's go. Kara, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's get back to Sarah.
All right. So Sarah. So let's get everybody oriented back in. So those of you joining in a little bit late, not a problem, welcome. We are doing a sort of a coaching intensive with Sarah. She has a dilemma. We just found it's either to stay in her flat that's going to have a whole bunch of outside construction starting that's going to be very noisy, or it's to leave and lose some money in the process. Karen just did, you'll have to catch it on the recording, a fabulous coin flip exercise. Sarah left us with saying she knows what she really needs to do and she really needs to go. So this would be a really great point, you guys. I'm going to ask the next coaching question is, so Sarah, what would be helpful for you now that you know that?
I'm not sure. It's funny you should talk about level 5. I'm level 5 off the chart. I see possibilities everywhere, but actually getting any one thing done is a nightmare. I don't know, part of me instantly wants to go into a story. Just to give some perspective, it's and semi-answer one of the questions. It's not just going to be a little bit of construction work. They're digging a super sewer, which is like this enormous sewer, right outside my window. That's going to be 20 meters down into the floor. The big hole will be about 100 meters long, and it's sort of 300-400 feet long in the street. And just this enormous great hole is going to be dug. It's not just a little bit of light building work. It's going to be like living on a construction site for 6 months. So it's not me being sensitive. It's going to be a nightmare. What would be helpful for me right now? And the whole building's going to vibrate. I don't know. It's not just the money as well. So there's not only the money, which I would lose to pay my way out of the contract early, but it's the thought of looking for somewhere else and all that time and emotional energy it will take. It took me a long time to find this flat, as well as actually moving house. And part of me is thinking, well, what if I have a problem at the next flat? And in my mind, this was going to be my last flat in London. So I wanted to have somewhere special. And then, you know, what I really want to do is move outside London into the countryside and then just come to London for a couple of days a week to do corporate work. So it's kind of interrupted my plan that took me a long time to come up with, if you know what I mean. And all of a sudden there's this very inconvenient large sewage works going on, which is scuppering my plans somewhat. What would be helpful right now? I've got to make a decision very quickly. Is the work start in April?
You know what, Sarah? I'm going to have you hold that thought. Think about it for a second. We're going to talk about what just happened. Okay. So this is great. She just told us a whole bunch of information, right? And Brenda even typed in, I'm curious, like, why is she telling us this? So what did you guys, just from your listening, what did you pick up of perhaps, why did Sarah share that information with us? What's still happening for her? What did you learn about Sarah in relationship to this dilemma? So let's talk about that, and then we're going to come back to her to say what would be helpful. So you don't even need a question. This is just coaching observation, because there was amazing nuggets within that, right? So what did you guys pick up on? You can unmute yourself and share.
She hates the moving process, the packing up, the loading up, finding the space. It took her a long time to get this loft, and she thought it would be the last one, even though in the long run she wants to go to the countryside. She like wants to prove to herself that this is the loft. That is it for now.
All right, who was jumping in next?
Diana.
Okay, go ahead, Diana.
I was going to say, it feels important to acknowledge all of the effort and hard work and just effort that she put in to land herself where she is now, only to kind of feel like the rug is being whipped out from under her, you know, just to like really say, yeah, you know, you really made a lot, you know, you sacrificed, and making that up a little bit, you know, you sacrificed, or you put all this effort to wind up where you are. Of course you're feeling like you want to hang on to this. Of course, you know, of course that's, you know, thwarting your decision-making process right now. If you had got into that place easily, it would be easy to let it go.
Sorry if anyone else is having a little drag on the video. But that was great. So really, it's a good validation. Okay, Leanne, go right ahead.
Yeah. So I heard quite a few things. So I heard that she sees possibilities everywhere, but she finds it hard to get things done. I heard her saying there was a little bit of big explanation about, no, it really is going to be really bad. I'm not being sensitive. It's going to be terrible, which is kind of interesting because that wasn't the question, and that she felt the need to be able to explain more about why it was really, really bad. She finds it very difficult to shift plans. She decided on a plan, and that plan was in place, and this was going to be the last place in London that she was going to live, which is is a big deal. I mean, moving to the countryside when you've lived in London for so long is a big deal. But she's finding it difficult just to move the existing plan forward. So that's what I heard.
Okay. So I'm gonna highlight something I heard, because it's a strategy Sarah's using right now to help herself. So the strategy is, she said, it is emotionally difficult. It's emotionally draining. And the emotional part of finding a new place is really what's difficult, right? Just the thought of it, for all those reasons. So what happens is she is rationalizing, right, why she should move. Maybe, perhaps, could be to generate energy to do it. I'm totally drained, but it is a really big deal, right? It's going to be super hard. I didn't think I'd have to go through this, but it's a super sewer, right? So, and I love that. No, Sarah, this is fantastic, right? Because what it shows is that her energy is completely drained about this, which is why she may go away from what she truly wants, because it'll feel easier right now, right? So if I just stay, then I don't have to do this. But I just share that with you guys because it's fantastic to be able to hear that, because we have so much great information. She also says she's the gal of possibilities, right? So that's perfect to be able to figure that out. So there's just a lot of information.
So one of the things here too, guys, is that we also learned a lot about Sarah. What we learned is that she is emotionally, it's difficult. We heard that, but we also heard that she's a heady kind of person, right? She's a heady kind of person, and she's an out loud processor. So a lot of it, she just talked through that whole thing. And Brenda, this might answer your question. And Sarah, I'm not talking about you like you're not here, but what's happening is she's reinforcing to herself the decision that she's making and why she's making it, right? So it's having the conversation in her head, but it's out loud. So we're hearing the dialogue that's going on, and her out loud processing is having her move from, maybe having her get to that spot to where this decision is going to feel better. So we had her make the decision fairly quickly. She knows what it is that she needed to know in the moment with the coin toss, but then it's just like, okay, great. Now I got to talk this through. That was quick, but now let's get everything out there that's actually going on. So that's great information to know about your clients. And the great thing was we all just sat back, let her talk. And that's cool because that's how she needed to process it.
Yeah, good. All right. So, and another technique here is also, even though I said we'll come back to it, you could say, list out everything that just really sucks about all this and let it get out and process, right? Validate both sides. It is clear that even though this is going to be a huge drain on you from an emotional standpoint and a timing, and it's a little bit disappointing as well, it sounds like it's the right thing to do for the bigger picture. So toss out everything right now that feels completely overwhelming about it, because those are the things that are going to have to get reconciled. So Sarah, if we were to say to you, you're being such a great sport about all of this, by the way, too, because you're probably like, oh my gosh, who knew? Is what would be helpful right now?
What was helpful was actually just, as Karen very, you nailed it basically, was me making the decision, but then I kind of needed to catch up with the decision and do that talking through and, you know, making it logical for me. And that's exactly what I did. And that was very helpful for just you to let me ramble on for a couple of minutes. Oh, well, because of this, and, you know, and talk myself into it, even though I know it's the right thing to do. So that was probably the most helpful thing to do. And also just to be heard and acknowledged and validated and all that without any advice being given, because all I've had is advice from friends that I've mentioned it to. Oh, you should do this, as happens. So just for me to be able to make my decision, you know, with my thought process was the most helpful thing.
I love that that just happened, Sarah, and I love that you even knew that you had to do it that way. Now, here's the thing too, is if your clients are not an out loud processor, it doesn't mean that they still don't need that time to process it. So I know some of you have heard this between Jen and I in the past. She is an out loud processor, and you will hear every single thought that's going on in her head, right? It could be, okay, so what do you want to have for dinner tonight? And she's like, oh, well, we had burgers last night, and, you know, we had pizza the night before, and we're going to have salad for lunch. Well, let's have fish. Me, on the other hand, you could say, so what do you want to have for dinner? And I'll be like, let's have fish. It's not saying that the thoughts aren't going on, but they're not out loud. And what happens is if you stop, like, this is really important to know your clients, because if you stop an internal processor by asking them questions, you derail them and they can't continue their thought process. But that's about knowing your clients. And it's that being okay with silence as a coach. And as long as you're okay with silence, like, you're going to be golden. But it's really, really knowing them.
All right.
What are you gonna say, Jen?
Nothing. We only have a couple minutes left. So what I'm gonna say is we can open it up. Sarah, obviously, you were a perfect client, and thank you for letting us do this with you, and also switching to Diana's client and coming back to you. And, but what is your, let's hear from a couple different people. What's your takeaway from the last 50 minutes together? What do you think? What stood out for you?
I can answer this. I feel like the push and the push pause moment. So really giving us the time to think about the questions, like what could be the right question right now. And that, like, open brainstorm, and then, but just like now let's do a psychoanalysis of this on the coach, but also on the client is so good, because I feel like when I feel like I do that on my own, like driving away from a client or post-client session, I have to like rethink about a whole conversation to do my own kind of reflection piece. So having that with everyone's perspective is super helpful. So thank you for that space.
Very cool. Who else? Yep.
I really, kind of a combination of something you said, Jen, early on about helping the client kind of separate what is the external condition versus how they're really feeling about it, and helping them to get clarity about what those two things are, and then inviting them to kind of reprocess it from that perspective. It seems like it really helps with clarity. And then it's like, you know, once you have clarity, you know what decision to make. It's not, I don't have to tell you, I don't have to coach you around that.
Yeah, and that's key right there with the processing. It would have been super easy for Karen to say, you know, flip it, call it, do it in the air. Okay, so what are you going to do now to find your next flat? Like, there's a huge problem with not doing that middle ground. It's the reconciliation of truly the decision she knows that needs to be made. Good. Who else? Let's see, B typed in here and said, I learned something about myself through Sarah. I now know that I'm an out loud processor, and that explains so much to me about how I work. Thank you. Good, excellent. Anybody else a big takeaway? Oh,
I really liked what Karen said about indecision still being a decision. You're still making a decision to stay in the situation that you're currently in. And I thought that was really interesting.
Very cool. All right, how about one more? Neelam?
So I am worried now that I may have pushed a client or two before they were ready, because it's interesting because I'm an out loud processor too, but I'm not sure I would have, I think maybe I would have gone to, okay, so how are you, what plans are you going to make to move? So it was eye-opening for me. Thank you.
So let's say that did happen, right? And I don't know if it did or not, but let's say that it felt that way. A great way to come back to session the next time is to say, so last time, you made the decision and we started focusing on actually moving. What still is hanging out there that you need to reconcile? Pull them back from the action. They can say nothing. I am good to go. I got the clarity and I found a great place. But you can do that if sometimes in hindsight we go, just do a check-in. Pull them back to the opportunity to process, to answer, to reconcile, to make right, what's still hanging out there, what doesn't feel settled, or whatever, to give them the opportunity for that direction. We all do things like that sometimes, right? So it's an easy way to do it.
Well, and I think sometimes they don't move to the action, and it's because of them. So
totally. Sarah, what were you going to share?
Just one final thought, really. I'm not naturally an external processor. I'm, very introverted. I live in my head. So I think part of the reason that when it was what is going to be the most helpful, I went, it's because normally I would kind of sit there, think, and then say fish for dinner, like Karen said. So actually being forced with however many people are on this webinar to actually come out with something, that's why it came out a bit garbled, because whereas normally I would kind of go, which would have been rather uncomfortably silent on this call. So it is interesting that forcing someone to externally process when that's not their natural does create a difference in the way they respond. So looking for patterns, whereas if it had been a one-to-one coaching session without you guys all looking, I probably would have gone, just give me a minute.
So let's say that happens. So one of the things that you can do is, let's say they come back and they say fish for dinner, right? Then say, take me through your thought process. That's a great way to start to hear it. So Karen and I have this game that we play with each other. It's take me on that train. That sounds so weird. Anyway, and I don't know if it's a game, but you know how like when you just say something random and you're like, I really love that song, by Bob Seger, whatever. And then it's random. It has no context to anything that's been going on in our life. There hasn't been a trigger. There's been nothing. Karen will go, take me on that train. And what we do is we try to think, how far back can we remember each thought that led us there? So it'll be like, well, it was really weird. I was thinking about having fish for dinner. And then I thought, God, I really love living on the water. And it is just so pretty here in Florida. And I love the nighttime sky. And then boom, 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 it leads to the Bob Seger song. We do that to help us be more conscious of our thoughts and how they lead to one another. So when you're with a client, take me on that train is run me through your thought process. If they're too quiet and they're not engaged with you, then you sit there and go, okay, so tell me what's running through your head right now. Like if you're worried they hung up or something, right? And you need to pull them back. You will get really good insights when you're able to do that. So, all right, I think that we are officially done for today. I will say this tonight. So we have this 4-part webinar series about leadership and corporate coaching. And tonight is our second part of the series. It's at 5 o'clock Eastern time. And we're going to be showing video, 2 different videos of professional coaches coaching. And then we're going to be stopping and saying, what would you do? And what would you ask? And such. So if you want information about that, just send me a message and I'll send you the link to sign up. But it's sort of like this, but we stay with the video. It's kind of fun though to see how other people, not trained by maybe where we went to school or someone else went to school, but it's pretty fascinating. So that's going to be tonight. Anything else, Kara?
Nope, that's it. Thank you very much, and thank you, Sarah. Thanks for playing, and we appreciate it.
All right, you guys, thanks. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.